And we're back with a new season of Leaders Create Leaders. Welcome, y'all. I'm in New York. I'm feeling good. And this season, we're going to be going over all things conscious creators. And in this first episode, I'm extremely excited because we're going to be meeting up with the millennial monk himself. Yes, he was a millennial, literally quit his job, quit everything to become a monk for 3 years, traveling in India and the UK, and now he's taking everything he learned and making wisdom go viral. He's accumulated over 13 million followers on Facebook. He's literally growing at leaps and bounds all over social. I think he's probably the fastest growing social media influencer that I respect over the past 2 years. I mean, he's really creating a lot of awareness around mental health issues, consciousness, mindfulness, relationships, deep connection, and it's just unbelievable. But more importantly, he's one of the most amazing human beings that I have ever became friends with. He's all about collaborating. So we're gonna get into the complete story, things that Jay's never talked about, the one and only Jay Shetty. I just want to for a second, Jay, man, just really take this in and really thank you, bro.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me here.
And typically I would thank you for being on the show, but I want to really thank you for who you are in the world and how you show up in the world. It's so admirable, bro. And like to be friends with you and to see you, serving at such a I don't want to just say high level, just such an important level, a deep level. I think, I can say this not just for myself, but on behalf of a lot of our community that has reached out to me when I said Jay Shetty's on season 4. They're all like, please, he changed my life. That's what they say, that he changed my life. Can you please tell him thank you? So on behalf of all of us, thank you, bro.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I'm blushing now, man. I'm touched, I'm humbled, and all the love that anyone has for any of what you've just said, I'm completely humbled and overwhelmed by it. It's incredible. But thank you, man. Thank you for having me here. I'm grateful to be here.
Amazing.
And it means a lot to me that you reached out. I was just saying this to you earlier when we were off camera, and I want to share it with everyone watching, that I feel that interviews are the best way of accelerating relationships.
Yeah.
And you're someone that I'd love to invest in a longer term bromance with.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we're doing this interview because I feel it will continue our friendship and extend it from where it already is.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for this, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, I think what was interesting, I want to go into your backstory a little bit because you weren't always this unbelievable millennial monk that so many people know that's completely made wisdom go viral. What interested me was that you actually were similar to me. I related to this, was that when you were in your teens, you were a little bit of a misfit, you were a little bit of a rebel, you really loved to experiment with things, you were a little bit of a troublemaker. And talk to me a little bit about that, Jay.
Yeah, sure. So it feels like a past life now.
I know, I bet.
It feels like such a past life now. And it's interesting because if my friends from my teenage years from school ever see any of my videos,
right,
and they'll message me and they'll be like, is this really you? Like, like they're shocked, they're surprised. Yeah. So that Jay was, until the age of 14, I was the teacher's pet. I was a good son. I was a good kid. I always worked hard, and I almost followed the pattern of what it meant to be a good child, quote unquote. I had the exact pattern of what it meant to, work hard at school, respectful to my parents, never broke boundaries, never broke rules, never did anything wrong until the age of 14. Never even thought of doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
And I kind of got to a place in life where I just felt like, well, where's this getting me? I was still experiencing racism at school. I was still being bullied at school. I was still not always getting the best grades in school at the subjects my parents wanted me to do well at. And I was just like, this can't be life. Like, I'm doing everything right, and I'm still not getting anything out of it. Like, what's the point of being good? And what's the point of doing everything right? I actually got to that point in life where I was like, what is the point of being good? What's the benefit of being good all the time? And then I also got involved with the wrong circles. At the same time at 14, I got involved with people that now, if I look back on and in hindsight, I wouldn't choose to associate with.
Right.
So I ended up associating with the wrong circles. And I just ended up getting involved in stuff that now when I look back, I'm just like, how stupid was I?
Yeah.
You know, like, how silly was I? But that's why I'm really glad that I went through that, because that's also what increases my non-judgment and compassion with young people today. So when I meet someone who's struggling with something, my first initial reaction isn't, you're stupid, get it right. It's kind of like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
Like, I get where you're coming from. So I can be non-judgmental and compassionate straight away, because I'm anchored by the fact that that was me just like 16 years ago. And I love that feeling. I love that feeling that I don't have the right to judge anyone, because at 14, and mainly 14 to 18, I was just experimenting with everything under the sun. And what I was really looking for was a thrill and an answer and something deeper, something more meaningful to get excited about. I was looking for that passion, that drive, that ability to feel like I had something to die for. And that quote, I remember I heard it very early, but Martin Luther King, if you have nothing to die for, then you have nothing to live for. And I was in that space. I had nothing to die for. I had nothing that consumed me. I had nothing that moved me. And I was that kid who wanted to find that, but I was looking for it in all the wrong places. So I was looking for it in the opposite sex. I was looking for it in drugs and alcohol. I was looking for it in getting involved in my version of Ocean's 11, or I should say Ocean's 8 now. Like, you know, planning, trying to use my intelligence for scheming and manipulative things. And it was just that, all of that was simply a plea for a shelter, a home, a mission, a vision that could really become my objective.
I want to touch on what you believe is happening right now in the education system. You know, has it changed much from when we were kids, right? Like, what do you think is wrong right now with our education system that you're seeing that maybe from when we were kids compared to now, that you're saying to yourself, like, why hasn't it evolved?
I'd say the biggest challenge with our education system right now is that we have completely become immersed and focused on caliber as opposed to character. And I don't think that that's changed in our time as well. I don't think we've evolved to think more about character and values and resilience and grit and patience and determination, when those are the skills that actually help you navigate life.
Right.
When you have someone that you love passes away, maths, English, and science don't help. When you are going through a troubling situation in your own life, history is not going to come to your rescue. When you're moving country, trying to start a business, the economics you learn at school doesn't even help or apply. And so I find that actually the real challenges in life are not being trained with us. And hence we see that people who go through the education system, regardless of them becoming millionaires, billionaires, successful people, celebrities, famous, whatever it may be, that doesn't mean they know how to navigate life. And for me, the core of education has to be about navigating life, which starts with navigating your mind. Like, that's where it begins. And if education is not able to help you navigate your mind, then the other stuff is just superfluous. Like, it's insignificant. The other stuff is insignificant. Whether you know how to add or write a sentence or know which element comes from where, like, those things don't dictate your experience of life. Those things don't define whether you're going to be happy or have a meaningful life. So the challenge is, we think that we're being built for a job, or we're being built to be in a box.
Right.
We're being built so that we fit into society. And I find it funny, right? It's like when you're a kid, you're told to fit in. Like, what you probably remember this: stay in line, like fit in.
Yeah.
Everyone has to wear a uniform. Everyone dresses the same. Everyone has to do this. And then when you grow older, what are we all trying to do? We're all trying to stand out. It's weird. It's like your whole life you were told to fit in, And then as soon as you grow older, it's like, oh, you need a personal brand now. You need to stand out. Like, do you know your own voice? You need to stand out. Because we realize that we're all different. So for me, what the education system is doing wrong, and I appreciate why it's getting it wrong, is that it wants to do a one-size-fits-all model.
Yeah.
And it wants to standardize education. And the biggest challenge with that is not only that people are different in skill set, but people are different in mindset. And so for me, the more education can focus on helping people navigate their mind, that as a priority, built with the foundation of subject skills, talent, etc., will just lead to a much more happy society and environment.
So I really genuinely agree with Jay's whole concept of how the education system just hasn't evolved over all these years, right? It just tries to put us into a box. But we also are going to get into how we really feel there needs to be more experiential, immersive learning experiences, and not just for our youth, but actually for us as adults, and then how this all relates to one of the worst tragedies to ever hit humanity, the Holocaust. Even in business now, you see so many of these big organizations, they give everybody personality tests. There's certain tests, right, to just understand how do they learn, because we are all different.
Yes.
Do you feel that we should be doing that with our children?
I'm hugely a believer in personality tests and personality models, as well as experimentation.
Okay.
So I think what has to happen is that what we don't want to do is make the personality test another box. Because me and you, we both know that we also have evolved and grown over time.
Right.
So maybe the box we were in as a kid, there will have been slight things that changed. So what I'd like to be able to do is use those tests and tools to give people a framework to then say, hey, you should go and experiment with this. Like, why don't you go try start a business with $200? You know, like just giving them and then let them see how they run with it.
Right.
So it's almost like, how can we put people into quicker tests and experiments where they can learn about themselves? And I think if we can teach, emotional intelligence to me is being able to be aware of yourself, self-awareness, being able to know yourself. That's the highest form of EQ.
Right.
Like being able to say, I know when I'm at my best, I know when I struggle, and I know when this is a limiting belief or not. And then being able to process all of that. So we're not helping people, I love saying this because it simplifies it, but we teach people what to think, not how to think.
Right.
We tell them 2 + 2 is 4, but we don't tell them how to think about a problem. And that's why when you're faced with a new problem and you don't have a formula for it and you don't have an equation for it,
right,
you're like, oh, I'm stuck, right? And life's like that. Like, when in life have you used a formula to solve a real situation in life, even business?
Yeah.
Like, when has a formula helped you?
Yeah.
But we're taught that formulas solve equations. But we all know that there's no formula to business, success, happiness, meaning, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah.
So that was the first thing. The second thing I was going to say is that IQ, EQ, and what I'm really pushing, and that's what I meant by the character point, is CQ. It's the conscious quotient, right? CQ, like consciousness, and you've got conscious creator there. For me, that's
what the whole season's about, conscious creators.
Yeah, oh, I love it. Oh, awesome. Great, there we go. And that's why I think CQ is so powerful, because CQ is beyond EQ, where it's about intention. It's about why you're doing what you're doing. It's about empathy. It's about compassion. It's going deeper to the point of saying, are you operating from a position of service and growth, or are you operating from a position of greed, etc.? Because someone can have emotional intelligence and use it in the wrong way. There are people who use emotional intelligence as a technique to manipulate,
100%.
to negotiate,
Yeah,
to persuade, to coerce, to get something out of someone. And I think that's where CQ becomes the steering wheel to help you use EQ and IQ to help the world.
I love that. And I know that you, out of like all the people that I become friends with in this arena, I feel like one of the things I love about you is you love experimenting. You talk about it all the time, but you go on these experiential learning experiences. Your life is one big learning experience, right?
Yeah.
And I love that, because to me, that's the way that I learn best, right? And I just came back from Jerusalem. And when I was there, I went through the Holocaust Museum. And then I met a Holocaust survivor. She actually gave this to me and blessed it for me. And I listened to this. We're actually the last generation to be able to talk to a Holocaust survivor. And listening to her, she wrote a book talking about a daughter of many mothers. And she told this whole story. I don't have the time to go through all of it now. It was beautiful, though, of how the strength of her mother, when they were invaded, her home, and they were all put together with all this, basically like their neighborhood, and they were getting ready to get taken to a camp. The mother let go of the daughter's hand and said, run. Wow. The strength of the mother letting go of her daughter and just saying, run. And she never saw her mother ever again. And throughout her journey, she had these different mothers that took her under her wing, but each one ended up getting murdered, slaughtered. 6 million people, because they were Jewish, were slaughtered. 1.5 million children were slaughtered and deceived. And I want to talk to you about this for a little while because it impacted my life so much, so much, going through that memorial of those children, going through that museum. And I said to myself, you know, I learned about the Holocaust when I was a kid in a history book, right? But it was like you don't get the emotion. You don't get to feel what it was like to go through that museum, go and see the pictures, black and white, see the shoes of these people, you know, listen to a Holocaust survivor. And I said to myself, if I was in high school and I think I went through an experiential learning experience like this, I would understand and have so much more respect.
So in answer to your question that you've just shared around the Holocaust education, I remember reading this poem. Well, not a poem, it's more of a letter that was written by a Holocaust survivor. And for me, this ties together all the topics we're talking about.
Great.
And I just want to put this out as a disclaimer before I share this. It's like, I don't feel I have any right even to know what it feels like, but I, like you, have also spent time with Holocaust survivors, have spent time trying to understand, trying to get my mind around like what type of pain, but in no way am I claiming that I understand it. So when I'm sharing this, I'm a survivor of a concentration camp. My eyes saw what no person should witness. Gas chambers built by learned engineers, children poisoned by educated physicians, infants killed by trained nurses, women and babies shot by high school and college graduates. So I'm suspicious of education. My request is this: help your children become human. Your efforts must never produce learned monsters, skilled psychopaths, or educated Eichmanns. Reading, writing, and arithmetic are important only if they serve to make our children more human. Wow. And I read that like 2 years ago or something like that, and it stayed in my head. I haven't quoted that since 2 years. You just sparked it, but that's CQ to me. Right? Or you want to call it HQ, whatever name we want to give it.
It sounds like HQ.
HQ, yeah. And it's just like, but that's why for me, as soon as you recognize that we're not this body, like that is philosophy, science number one. Like we're not this body.
Right.
Because this body changes, it dies, right? It remanufactures itself. But the real us, the consciousness that's sitting within each body is what connects us all. As soon as you start seeing through that lens, now you're not divided based on country or geography or religion or background. And I feel that my experiences have shown me that people in every background, race, religion, demographic can choose to be good or choose to be bad.
Right.
There is no external thing that makes us good or evil.
Right.
It is simply a choice that we make in that moment that can be made by any background. And I think the more we recognize the fact that we're not the body, the more we remove all these designations. But again, we're so lost in these false identities.
Right.
In the same way as the body's one identity, and then the second identity is, oh, well, I'm from the US, you're from the UK. I'm from India, you're from Africa. That's one other identity. It's another layer we've added to ourselves. Then another one is, I'm from this city, like rep my city, right? Like I'm representing my city. I'm New York versus Chicago versus London versus whatever. And then beyond that, it's like my sports team.
Right.
And then beyond that, it's like my family.
Now it's social media.
Yes, now it's social media. It's my following, this. And it's like we're constantly ruining our own understanding of our own real identity by putting on fake costumes.
Yeah.
And it's like becoming a method actor.
Right.
Like we're all method actors where we're lost in the identities we've created for ourselves. Yeah. So I often like to think of it like Inception.
Yeah.
Like we have lost ourselves in an identity, in an identity, in an identity.
Right. like that, which I think you have talked about this before, that perception of
Correct.
a perception.
Correct. Yeah. One of my favorite quotes from
Right.
Cooley is, "I'm not what I think I am. I'm not what you think I am. I am what I think you think I am." And we lose ourselves in that.
Yeah.
But I want us to almost like be pulled back. It's like falling down a well,
Yeah.
and like being so deep, or falling into the ocean and being so lost deep, and you need someone to come and pull you out.
Yeah.
And it's almost like that's what we all need to do with ourselves.
I literally feel like I could talk to Jay for like days. He's so brilliant. And in this next segment, we're gonna talk about a lot of different things. First and foremost, we're gonna be talking about how to really truly follow that intuition. I mean, we're constantly allowing our mind and emotions and the way that we've been conditioned our entire lives to allow us to make decisions. And we need to get into how do we actually feed that other part, that soul, that spirit, that intuition that allows us to make decisions that are so important in our life. And then we're gonna get into ego. Everyone's got one. You know, I'm gonna be very vulnerable here, but we're gonna talk about the importance of ego and overcoming that ego. And then last but not least, we're gonna be getting into relationships, something that Jay is really known for talking about, but not just the relationship with others, but the relationship with ourselves. But talk to me about, you know, becoming a monk, what it was like to become enlightened. And then if you could share a little bit about, if you were to talk to someone watching this right now that is very conditioned, that doesn't actually realize the power, the light that they have within, what would you say to them to break through the conditioning, the thoughts, the perception that they've created for their reality? That is the inception that you're talking about.
Yeah. I think you used a really important word while you were sharing this, and you used the word awakening. And awakening signifies that we're asleep. When you say we have to become woke or awaken, or any of these words that we're using now, rising above, it all means that we're asleep. So even though we think we're awake, we're saying we're consciously asleep.
Yeah.
And therefore the earth, people around us, conscious creators, everyone you've mentioned, are simply all trying to wake each other up. And we all know that when you don't wake up in the morning, the alarm just has to get louder and louder and louder. And if the alarm doesn't get louder and louder and louder and louder, we don't wake up. And so if you see the earth in a state of emergency, if you see the environment in a state of emergency, if you're looking at the world in a state of emergency, it's because the alarm's just getting louder and louder and louder and trying to say, wake up, like wake up, you know? And so for me, that's the process that we all need to go through. Just as it's tough to wake up in the morning after you've been out to a party, you've had too much to drink, you've done something that you weren't proud of, or you've wasted your time. Just as it's hard to wake up every morning when you've done that the night before, it's hard to wake up consciously when that's all you've done for lifetimes, like when that's all you've done for your whole life.
Yeah.
That's how hard it is. And I think that's why we struggle, because we all know how hard it is to just wake up the next morning when you've had a late night.
Yeah.
Imagine you've been having late nights in your consciousness for a long period of time.
Yeah.
So the process of being a monk and getting to that, first of all, I became a monk because I observed at 18 when I first met the monk, which I've talked about several times, but this is what I haven't shared and I'm sharing it with you. I was looking at life and going, what do I want my life to be about? And I saw successful people who were depressed, I saw rich people who were sad, and I saw famous people who in the end had to find a new way of getting happy. And just this week as we're talking, we saw what happened to Kate Spade and Anthony Bourdain, and rest in peace to both of them, and you know, blessings and our best wishes and prayers for both of them.
Yeah, and the
millions of other people in the world that we don't know about,
Yeah.
like in the people that we don't talk about and we don't see because they're not famous and well known. At 18, I was awakened to the belief and understanding that if I did not focus on my consciousness, there was no such thing as happiness and meaning. If I didn't go inward, there was no chance of longevity in any form, because I saw all of this around me.
Right.
So what I saw in the monks that was different is that they almost had tapped in to the way of the universe. And I'll explain what I mean by that. What I mean is that if you observe the universe carefully, every element in the universe is constantly serving. Constantly. The water provides us with energy. The trees provide us with nutrition. The oxygen is just fueling our bodies.
Yeah.
And it's taking nothing from us.
Yeah.
You look at the tree, when you take shade of a tree, the tree doesn't say that will be $2.
Yeah.
Right? The tree.
I think about this all the time with
Right?
air. I really
Yeah,
do.
yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
it's so many things.
And now we're bottling up air and selling it, right? There's oxygen bars. But the point being that there is every element. The sun is giving light.
Yeah.
And is growing our plants and vegetables. The rain is growing our plants and vegetables. And giving. Every element in the universe is serving. And what I learned as a monk, and you speak about this, and we just experienced it so deeply when we were there, is that the only way to be aligned with the universe is to serve. Because then you're acting in alignment. Because the universe is serving. So when you're serving, you are now in the universe. You're now with the universe. The universe is your ally. Whereas as long as you're trying to serve yourself and be greedy, you're now working against the universe. So when people talk about like the universe has your back, or you should work with the universe or be aligned with the universe, that's what it means. Universe isn't about, oh, universe, I want a big car, like give it to me. That's not being aligned with the universe.
Right.
Being aligned with the universe is choosing service as your focus. So when we were monks, we were focusing on three things. The first thing was to detach from our body, to realize we were more. And I always like to say, and
this is so
good.
hard.
Are we on the right path?
For sure.
Oh, okay, fine.
For sure.
Yeah.
Sorry,
it is hard. It is hard.
When you talk about detachment, I'm just
yeah.
like that I think is one of the hardest things that we face today.
It is 100%. And one of the ways we were trained, and I'm not recommending this to anyone watching. I'm just sharing how much we are obsessed and addicted to the body. We were trained to not look in the mirror.
Oh wow.
So I didn't look in a mirror for like 3 years.
Wow.
Right? Like effectively.
No way.
Effectively, yeah. As in, I looked in the mirror now and again when I had to shave my head or like whatever. Like,
right.
But you don't look in a mirror to look at your appearance. I'm not saying that, I don't recommend that before you go to work tomorrow or anything like that, but just listen to the principle carefully.
You're going to get a...
yeah.
Like, Jay, I can't even...
Yeah.
What do I look like?
Yeah, what do I look like?
No,
so the reason is, and that's the reason why monks have shaved heads too, because you focus less on your physical appearance. You spend less time on your physical appearance. What that allows you to do is it literally dissolves your understanding of your physical presence, which means all you have to deal with is the inside. Just think about how much attention it takes to keep ourselves well groomed, to take care of ourselves, to our ego and attachment to how good we look. And I have it too, right? We all have it. Like, I'm not saying I'm detached from that. But what I'm saying is that we were trained in the belief that if you're able to switch off and close your eyes, why do we close our eyes when we meditate?
Right.
It's because it detaches us from the physical presence of where we are so that we can go inside. So in the same way, recognizing and learning, and you can only take the world as far as you visited internally. Like, you can't take the world further than where you've been internally. Just as you can't take the world to a retreat to another country that you've never been to, you can't tell the world about intention and compassion until you've been there in yourself.
Right.
So it was taking that obsession and addiction away from the physical state and trying to dive into the conscious state. And that was the process of detachment, was brought about through experiments. So one of the experiments that I loved was being able to be in extreme heat and cold in meditation.
Yeah.
So that detaches you from the body because it makes you realize how much of it is in the mind, how much heat and cold are in the mind. Another one was when we were put out on the streets with nothing but had to fend for ourselves. And you recognize how you can actually live with very little and how you need very little to get by. Whether it was fasting, like not being able to eat for several days or drink for several days, you recognize how grateful you are for what you do have. And so these mini experiments that are very extreme, that I'm not saying anyone has to do, and I'm not recommending anyone at home to do them. All I'm trying to say is that the body is like a vehicle. We have to take care of it. Just as you have a nice car, you got to take care of that nice car. But if you don't feed the driver, that car's not going anywhere. And so many of us have become more addicted to the vehicle than we have to the driver inside. And so the way of tapping into that driver inside is spend time with people who know their driver really well. And that's why monks were such a big part of my growth, because you meet people who have no agenda, want nothing from you, want nothing of the world, and are not trying to get somewhere. Like there's no win-win. It's only win for you. Like there's no win in it for them. And being around the energy of realized people who have that realization, who've been with their consciousness for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, that's a huge part of it. The second thing is to develop, and I know you do this, you did a meditation, and I'm saying this, you probably know how great Gerard is already, but I'm saying this because I love the fact that when I turned up today to shoot, I was told that Gerard was meditating upstairs before the shoot. And I was just like, this is the kind of person I want to be working with, because that's my ethos, that just as we prepare, if he just kept, like, he's looking great right now, I hope you don't mind me saying it. Nice, his hair looks good, he looks good, he's got a nice trim. But that's one set of preparation. What about the preparation of the consciousness before an interview? It's an exchange of energy.
Yeah.
So he can be prepared physically, but if he's not prepared energetically, then where is this conversation going to go? So in your own life, I want to encourage you to not only prepare physically for sure, but prepare energetically, because everything in the day is either going to drain or raise your energy. And so if you're not prepared on an energy level, the same thing will happen. If you're not prepared on a physical level, people won't take you seriously. If you're not prepared on an energy level, people won't even take you more seriously.
I feel like ego, everyone got one. Mm-hmm. How do you balance it? Because what is your perception on it? Because I feel like it's something that we all continue to battle. I can't say here I don't have ego.
Same.
Right? We still have ego. But how have you learned how to balance, ego, and then how has it served you in the world?
Sure. Yeah, there's a thought that I love which says, you know who you are when no one's watching. Like what you do when no one's watching, that's who you are.
Yeah.
So we all know when we're alone whether we choose meditation or Netflix. Like we know when we're alone whether we choose, for a lot of people out there, whether they choose reading books and learning or pornography, right? You know when you're alone what you choose.
Yeah.
And I think that really helps you overcome your ego, because when we reflect on ourselves when no one's around, that's when we're truly uncovering who we are. One of the points, and I'm getting to the ego point, but and I loved what you just said now, that if you sat here and said, I have no ego, you can't say that. And I agree with the same for myself. If I sat here and said I had no ego, that would be a complete lie. And there's a beautiful story of Benjamin Franklin, that he had his 13 precepts before he died. He had 13 qualities that he wanted to attain in life before he passed away. They included things like integrity, simplicity, honesty, virtue, etc. So these were his 13 set. And at the end of his life, he was asked, which one did you not attain? And he said the 13th one. And they said, what was that? And he said, humility. And that, for me, almost means that he conquered it, because, he was able to accept that he didn't conquer humility.
That's almost like how he ended it.
Yeah. And I was like, this is amazing, and it's true story. And 13 Precepts are great. Read the book. It's there, Benjamin Franklin's book. And so the reason why I'm sharing that story is because the way you overcome your ego is to recognize that you're simply a channel or an instrument. When you recognize that you're an instrument, and whether you believe in the universe, whether you believe in power, whether you just believe in mentorship, you recognize that everything you're giving is because someone's given to you and someone's given to that person. And therefore you're becoming a vessel, an instrument, a vehicle for the greatest powers in the world, and just being a channel for that. And that allows you to feel two things. One thing is you feel liberated, because now it's no longer your burden. It's not like, oh my God, I've got to be the most amazing person in the world. It's not like, oh my God, it's all on me. You're actually like, wow, actually, yeah, I learned from that teacher and that teacher and that teacher and that teacher. And now I'm just a vessel for everything that I've gained. And I'm able to channel it and transfer it to others. So it liberates you from the pressure and the burden of like, oh my God, like everyone's expecting me to give the best talk of my life. Like, but when you realize that you're not, you're just a channel and you're just a transfer mechanism. And the second thing that it does is that it allows you, whenever your ego gets in the way and says, yeah, we're doing well, like I did that, you start recognizing and you get perspective and gratitude on the fact that, no, actually, I'm going to pass this, whatever good's happening in my life, pass it to my teachers, pass it to the people that shared it with me. Because there is no one who is self-made. We talk about self-made millionaires. There is no one. That word shouldn't even exist.
Yeah.
Because none of us are self-made. I'm not self-made. You're
Right.
not, like, and that's not a.
It's a cool term though.
It's a cool term,
but it's definitely not true.
Yeah, and it's not true, and it's not a diss. Like I'm not criticizing it. This is not like a slight dig at anyone
Of course.
for using the terminology at all. All I'm saying is just that if we all truly reflect, and I don't want anyone watching to think I have to be self-made, because if you have to be self-made, then you're going to have to self-fall too, right? And everything will be self, and you'll fall on your own and you'll rise on your own. I actually believe Ryan Holiday has the best book on this. He's a good friend. He wrote a book called Ego is the Enemy.
Yeah, he was on the show. We covered
great.
Ego is the Enemy.
Love it. Like for me,
if you haven't picked it up,
definitely for me, it's the best book I've read on ego for the modern environment. And another story I'll tell you, because I love this too, and it shows. So, and he'll like this story. So Marcus Aurelius, if you haven't read Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, highly recommend it. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor, Meditations is his personal journal. And one of the stories that I love about him that comes up in a few Hollywood movies too, is that once when he was walking through the Roman town square, he used to have his advisor follow him around. And whenever people would glorify him and praise him, the person's job was to come into his ear and whisper, "You're just a man. You're just a man." Just to remind him in that moment where you just, in that moment where you just feel like your ego is just going through the roof because everyone's saying, "You're amazing, you changed my life," etc. To remember you're just a man. And I would add to that, remember the people who made you that, right? Wow. Remember the people who gave you that. And so that's how I've learned to balance ego, is by any time I'm glorified or praised or appreciated or recognized, I'm passing that off to my teachers, guides, mentors, the universe, and accepting it on their behalf. So if I receive an award, I actually don't think it's mine. I'm accepting it on behalf of everyone who made me the way I am.
It's beautiful.
Whether it was positive or negative too.
That's beautiful.
Right?
So I'm going to talk about something I haven't shared again.
Go for it. Me too. I'm sharing a lot of stuff I haven't shared before. Stuff in my head, so that's good.
So most recently, I was invited to a bachelor party.
Okay.
And when you think about a bachelor party, what do you think? Typically,
I don't go to them anymore because of what I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So this is my first time going to one, right? And
first one.
This was my first one. I was invited to other ones, but there was conflicts, and then I actually. Long story short, I think my ex-girlfriend didn't trust me going on one of them, which she should have watched one of your videos. Yeah. But I was invited to my friend Daniel, who's on the show, Daniel DiPiazza, and he invited me to Joshua Tree, which I've always been looking forward to going to Joshua Tree.
Keep hearing about Joshua Tree.
Oh, you're gonna.
Everyone's talking about
Joshua Tree. Love it. You would love it. You would love it. So Daniel, I thought was very unique because again, you think bachelor party, you think alcohol. Probably strippers, probably bad food, just destroying yourself and having fun, partying, right? But his was completely different. He invited us into a sacred ceremony, and he invited me to meet, this shaman, who's just like this remarkable teacher, who reminded me of a monk, and he sat with me and he talked to me about my body design. Now, we were gonna go into doing this like sacred ceremony using natural medicine. So my first question is, have you ever done anything like this before?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you like to share? What have
No,
you
go on,
done?
get into it. And then
Okay.
and then
It's a little nerve-wracking.
Yeah. Yes.
But we ended up doing, the team, he did a whole, it was a DMT and then ayahuasca journey. When I went through this journey, the thing that it was interesting because I had to actually go face to face with my fears. And I didn't even almost know what they truly were. But the interesting thing for me was like in the process of letting go, and I became so aware of the judgment that I put on myself, and sometimes that I even put on others, that clouded my mind. And it was until I actually had to let go, and it almost felt like I had to die. Like I had to let go of any fear, just trust myself, and just die. And when I let go in that moment, it was like the human gate opened up for me. And I saw these beautiful, just beautiful colors, beautiful lights, sacred geometry. I almost felt like these angels pulled me in And then I felt, for me in that moment, and I think it was because it was right before going to Jerusalem, I felt like it was Jesus. Regardless of what anyone's religious beliefs are, for me in that moment. And the answer, like, it wasn't like, I don't know if I had a question in that moment, but it had me sit up and start talking, and it was almost like I was channeling about letting go to everyone in that room. He had actually had a fireplace going. It was a beautiful ceremony. Yeah. But the thing that he said to me was so profound. But the interesting thing is, when I came back to my body, I'm like, why is it so hard for people to understand it? And what he said was, he said, Gerard, all suffering for entire humanity can be solved by one thing: love. Just love. If we can just be love and give love, it would end all suffering. And when it hit me, I was like enamored, because it's like something we know, but it's almost like it's so simple that I don't know why it's so hard for us to carry that kind of love and selflessness for others. And when I came back to my body, I'll never forget, I ended up like running out into the desert, because it's out into the desert. I felt like a warrior. I was like, put me back in. Like, I'm ready to serve, you know? It's like, it was like I had this answer that's like, you know, but it's different when you hear it from like the universe itself, God himself, Jesus himself for me, right? And when I came back to my body, I fell down to my knees. I felt the sand. And I was like, and this is what happened. This is a true story. Immediately I started judging myself. Oh my God. What did I just say in there? Is everything okay? Daniel, this is your bachelor party. I'm so sorry. Did I do something wrong? Judge, right? But then it clicked. I'm judging. These are those thoughts that I'm creating that don't exist, right? And then I remembered the message. And then it hit me hard. And I was like, whoa. And that was another big breakthrough in my life, very transformational in my life. And it was beautiful because it was right before I went on this next journey of going to Israel and Jerusalem and the Holocaust and all these things. I guess my question is, you had texted me, it was like, have you been through a similar journey like that in your life, and would you mind sharing something like that?
Well, thank you for opening up first. It's great that the audience gets to like hear about your own challenges and struggles, and also just questions, you know, so thanks for opening up. And not that I have all the answers, but it's, you know, we've all heard the story, and I'm just sharing it again to give context. We've all heard the story of the two wolves, or the two dogs, however you want to phrase it. And if you haven't, I'll tell it now. It's the story of how inside of us there are two dogs, two wolves, and they're fighting for supremacy. So inside you, one is the initiator and one is the responding. Your whole life, you've been feeding and listening to the initiator. So your initiating wolf is strong, powerful, bulky, aggressive, because it's been fed well your whole life. And your responsive dog, your responsive wolf, has not been fed, has not been listened to. And so it's weak and feeble and meek and humble, and doesn't even stand to fight. So when they two come to fight inside of you, this wolf's just going to eat that wolf right up. And that's what's happening right now. So for all of us, whatever two wolves you're seeing, whether it's your mind and your intelligence, whether it's your intuition versus what your parents say, whether it's expectations of society versus your expectations of yourself, like whatever two wolves you have inside of you, the one that wins is the one you feed, and the ones you have been feeding. Now, if you're at a point where you are and where I am, and where all of us are in different scenarios of our life, where we're trying to shift and start feeding the other one, it's hard because the other one's just been fed more. It's stronger. It's able to push you. It's able to dictate you. And this is where detachment's so key. That detachment doesn't mean that you own nothing. Detachment means that nothing owns you. And most of us have become owned by our darker wolves. Most of us have become owned by the self that we don't want. So that conditioning has been drawn up. The only way to break it is to disrupt the pattern, to really break that. It has to be, and this is why I talk to people about immersive experiences. Like you meditating for 10 minutes a day on a headspace, that's wonderful and I recommend it, but that's not gonna shift this in a drastic way. You are going to have to go and spend a week out in Joshua Tree with the shaman. You are going to have to take a break in Jerusalem, right? We were both in love with Jerusalem. Like, instead of going on a holiday this year, you are going to have to go on a 3-day intensive transformative retreat. And the reason why I'm saying all these different things is they all have different budgets. They're all available in different countries. You don't have to go to India and live with monks,
right,
but you have to do something, and it has to be immersive. Because when you get immersed in something, then you're giving something the power to break your pattern.
Right.
And I think the challenge is we're trying to solve it by a little thing every day, which is a good start to get us going. But if you're really serious about a massive shift in your life, wherever you're seeing that energy coming from for the right side, the responsive side,
yeah,
you need to go water that. You need to go feed it. You need to go give it energy. And that's what I think we find that. And that's where I think people struggle. They still want to go on their beach holiday. They're like, no, I can't give that up. I need that. Or this weekend, I still need to go and do up my house. And it's like, well, no, like, just imagine what would happen if this weekend you just went on a 3-day retreat that changed your life. Like, imagine if you just gave that energy. That's why I always talk about love as a verb, right? Love is a doing word. It's active. It's a verb. And if love is a verb, then service is the action. And that's why love and service have to be so intertwined, because I feel that today when we talk about love, the definition is so skewed. When people hear the word love,
that's maybe what the problem is.
That's what the problem is. That's why I prefer service to love, because service is the activation of love. When someone loves someone, they serve. That's how love works. And I think that's why when we talk about love, I agree, it's just because of phonetics, definitions, breaking it down, love has become so badly abused. Like, the word love is so abused and misused in our lives.
Hey, it really is, right?
You say, I love you to people you don't love. People use it to manipulate people. We just throw love around.
Right.
And as much as it should be everywhere, it's also sacred. Love's also sacred, and that's why you were able to experience it, because it was experienced through a sacred mechanism. You were able to experience love.
Yeah, and I've never felt it like that before, because it also was this sense of self-love as well.
Yeah, and that's what you felt in Jerusalem too, right, when you went, and that's what I felt, and that's what I feel, that we experience love when it's through service and engagement in that atmosphere. We don't just experience it every single day.
I want to do an experience with you.
Yeah, we should do it, definitely. I have a long-term desire to want to take retreats back out to where I lived as a monk.
I would love to do
for
that.
friends and for people that I'm close with, and I know everyone wants to go, and so I'm getting there, guys. I'm trying to plan and get it right at the right time. We were left on the streets for 30 days to fend for ourselves and to figure it out. Just, that's it. You've got your clothes that you're wearing. There's no money, no food, no shelter, no nothing. Figure it out. And day one, I'm like, okay, like, you know, maybe it's a joke. Like, maybe they're gonna come back at night and be like, no, guys, you know. So I'm trying to figure out what it is. This is training mode, and it's really interesting what your mind and body does. So the first thing your mind and body does when you have nothing is you have fear. The first thing you feel is fear, and that we can all relate to in life. The first thing you feel when you all of a sudden feel that your plan and you have nothing organized and you have no structure and shelter and all of this stuff that we now rely on, you have fear. Now, the fact that you're there on your own and you don't have a phone and you can't just call someone up and you don't know the city that you're in, your next thing is survival.
Right.
Fear leads to survival mode. So you're trying to find food from everywhere, you're trying to hoard it, you're trying to get it from everywhere, you're trying to keep it, you're trying to figure out, like, how can I get lots of this so that I can take care of myself? And you start just becoming crazy almost. And it's funny because those two experiences are so similar to what you see in society today.
Yeah.
Fear breeds survival mode, which breeds greed and hoarding and wanting to have.
Lack of abundance.
Lack of abundance, exactly. And so you do that in that scenario for, like, remember, this is a 30-day experiment. That's crazy. So you do that for like the first week. You do that for the first week where you're just trying to find anywhere, steal, look, etc. Not steal, trying not to steal, but like finding fruits off trees, whatever. You're just trying to do whatever you can, finding anywhere to sleep. And you're fending for yourself. It's all about you. The interesting thing that happens in week 2 is that you recognize that you really want to, when you make a difference in someone's life, they'll help you. So by week 2, you start recognizing, oh, if I help villages, if I help this old lady, if I help this old man, if I serve the people around me, then they'll give it to me anyway. And we saw people inviting us into their homes. We saw people giving us food. We saw people cooking for us just because we were helping people.
Wow.
And you start to see community. You start to see the value of collaboration. You start to see the value of energy exchange. You start to learn how your heart and soul leads to other people giving you their heart and soul. And you experience that. Now, the interesting thing is that goes on for about 2 weeks and you think you've kind of mastered it.
Right.
And then the biggest challenge comes when this is what you're meant to grow to, and this is where you go beyond feeling good about serving and getting an exchange. And this is not spoke about as prominent today because I think we live in a world where people aren't self-loved and self-fueled enough to even consider this. And so we talk a lot about self-love today, which I highly believe in.
Right.
We talk a lot about non-judgment of yourself today, which I highly believe in. But this principle is beautiful. We recognized by the final week that actually we were far stronger and capable than a lot of people on the planet, a lot of people in the village, that were disabled, that couldn't see, that had lost their eyesight, that couldn't speak, that couldn't walk, they had broken limbs. And so by the end of it, we realized that when we served others and gained, we could actually give to those people because they didn't have, because they weren't young men like we were, they weren't able men like we were, they weren't skilled like we were. And that
so you can even go another level.
You could go another level. It wasn't just that you could take care of yourself, you could go another level.
Wow.
But those 3 stages of transformation show us exactly the 3 stages we need. The first is getting over your greed and ego. The second one is recognizing that you have value, and when you serve others, there's a value exchange. And the third, when you're feeling full and overflowing, you can then overflow to others. And so for me, that 30 days has transformed my life ever since. Because I was able to experience all of the experiences we experience today, but in heightened mode. I didn't know where I was going to sleep or where I was going to eat. And when you experience it at that extreme and you're able to work it out, now you have more perspective, you have more gratitude, you have more ability to navigate that emotion again. Yeah. And you recognize that it is an emotion. So for me, that was one of the most transformative things that I've ever done.
Wow. That's powerful.
Yeah, and it just really took me on an internal journey of overcoming fear, overcoming greed, and always recognizing that you can always go that one step above, and recognizing that you don't, as soon as you think you've figured it out, recognize that you haven't, and that there can be another level. And I think for all of us, that's a great reminder for me that when I think I have it figured out, that's the biggest reminder of there's still another level you've got to go.
I love that. Jay Shetty, oh my God, what a way to kick off our season. And guys, there's so many takeaways. I don't even know where to begin. But ultimately, Jay literally became completely detached, became a monk for 3 years, came back into the real world and found what was meaningful to him. He started just 2 years ago making videos, literally from scratch, and then look at his growth. It's been unbelievable, and it should be an inspiration to you guys that you can start now becoming a conscious creator, and it's about impact, guys. And seriously, I'm so inspired. This conversation really touched me on so many levels. I'm so appreciative of the vulnerability. Each one of our upcoming episodes goes deeper and deeper and more vulnerable with such amazing modern day leaders. So thank you for being a part of this journey. It's season 4. I can't believe it. We all started as just an idea. So I want to just thank you guys for being on this journey with me. Remember, we can all be the love and light that we want to see in the world. Jay is proof of that, and I hope you guys are inspired as well. Make sure to share this with your friends. Comment and thank Jay. Comment and let me know who else you want to see in the show. And let me know, what was your biggest takeaway from this episode? Hopefully you guys subscribe. And again, I appreciate you guys. Until our next episode of Leaders Create Leaders, it's your boy GA. Love and light. Peace. Guys, so if each one of these episodes resonates with you, the lifestyle, the impact, just really the whole model that all these entrepreneurs represent, it's something that I think, really helps them stand as a world-class leader. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to give you guys some extra value other than just watching these episodes. So I created a report, and it's called The Map. It's basically a guide to give you and teach you how to create this influence, this impact, this income that a lot of the entrepreneurs and leaders that I bring on the show have. The MAP stands for monetizing your expertise, amplifying your message, and positioning your personal brand. It's free. All you guys got to do is click the link in the description and we'll email it to you free of charge. And it's something that I wish I had when I first became a creator. So hopefully you guys enjoy, and thanks for watching Leaders Create Leaders. Peace.
I just wanna see the light. I just wanna see